Right. Welcome to this, the last presentation of this conference, except for what's going on later with the lightning talks. ECS 6 is the name, and you have the presentation as a PDF, the URL to that. I guess you read that bit. Why write a lot of code when you can let Perl 6 do most of the job for you? Programmers repeat themselves all the time. Reinventing the wheel can be fun, but modules and object orientation are helpful in reducing the code base. And as you know, the Perl 6 designers took a hard look at the common tasks and came up with ways to reduce the amount of code we have to write. The result is a lot of very powerful keywords in the core language, and this talk takes a look at some of them. This is not an introduction to Perl 6. If you want that, you can look up one I did last year in Oslo. A little bit about me. I've been programming Perl for 30 years. So quite a long time. I started with Perl 3, so yeah. I live in Oslo, Norway, and I'm active in Oslo PM. If you want to contact me for some reasons, that's my email address. I have a Perl 6 blog with a very nice domain name, I think, as long as the name of Perl 6 doesn't change. So please don't. With 25 articles, the last one today. Most of them in response to the Perl Weekly Challenge. So thank you for that. I'm working on several Perl 6 courses. And the first one should have been held here, but was cancelled due to lack of interest. That's your fault. Then the presentation. The first topic is new lines. In Perl 5, you have to add the new line manually at the end of the line. Yeah, sorry about that. And with say, you get the new line automatically. A shorter keyword and an automatic new line added. And of course, Perl 6 has print as well if you want it. We want to have control of the lines. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Perl 5 also has say, so it's the same there now. But this is not so much as a comparison of what Perl 5 has today, but what Perl 5 didn't have when Perl 6 arrived. So a lot of it has been backported afterwards. But input to read the line from the keyboard without the trailing new line. In Perl 5 you have to use chomp on it, but in Perl 6 the new line is automatically removed. So you avoid that mess. You can do in and output at the same time. In Perl 5 you have to do it in 2 commands. In Perl 6 you can use prompt. Yeah. Everything I talk about today is built in. files. Next topic. New lines. You heard about them. You can forget all about it in Perl 6. Perl 6 takes care of it. Reading a file in Perl 5. Open it. Iterate over the lines. Do something about them. And close the file handle afterwards. In Perl 6, just treat the file name as an object, as an IO object, and attach lines to it, and you get all the lines back. Yeah. Don't be picky. We can take it later if that's. If you want the entire file in Perl 6, you can just use slurp, and you get it in one single string with new lines and everything intact. And if you want to split it on into lines, you can use lines on that variable with the content. Writing a file in Perl 5, open it, printing the lines, and closing the file handle. Perl 6, well, you do the same, except if you want to write the entire file at once, you can use spurt. And you don't have to worry about closing the file handle. Everything is taken care of by that single command. You have a program that takes a file name as argument, and you have to check if the file exists. In Perl 5, the -e and the -r commands. In Perl 6, they are slightly renamed by the IO class, and we can do it in the main, the magic main subroutine. You don't have to use it, but it saves you some work. Next topic, if and alternatives. Stacked conditions. If you want to check if a value is between two values, you have to, in Perl 5, stack them like that. And beware of precedence, so use the right sort of and. In Perl 6, you can write this code. We can avoid avoid using if in Perl 6. If you have an if block like that in Perl 5, you can, in a procedure, you can in Perl 6 do it with multiple dispatch. Different versions of the procedure call depending on the argument. The first one here, with just a hard-coded value, is a short form for that one. Just a hard-coded value is perfectly all right if you are fine with losing the variable. If you need the variable for something, you of course cannot do that. Junctions. Complicated ifs. In Perl 5, if you want to check if a variable is one of several distinct values, you have to do it that way. In Perl 6, you can do it with the junctions. The benefit is that it's less typing and you don't have to type the variable name all the time. So it's less error prone. You can also do it like that. An explicit junction with any. And they work in assignments as well. So now the variable a has the values 1 and 2 at the same time. And you can compare them for that value 1 and 2, and it will return true for both of them. So now we can implement Schrödinger's cats in Perl 6 if you want to. The type system. In Perl 5 we have no type system except classes with a strange syntax. In Perl 6 we have a full type system. We can choose to use it if you want to, or ignore it. But everything is an object and can be treated as such, if you want to. And we have classes. Types, Perl 6. If you declare a variable of a type as an int, it breaks if you try to assign a non-integer value to it. And the same with a string, it breaks if it tries to assign a numeric value to it. You saw this yesterday, I think. And it's interesting because COBOL got it right a long time ago, so yeah, here we are. And finally Perl 6 rectifies that. Rational numbers. 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1 in the natural world, but not for most programming languages. It does in Perl 6 and Perl 5 now, for some reason. They do this by storing 2 integers for a value of the type rat, the numerator and the denominator. And the actual value is first computed when we print it. So it's stored as 1 and 3 right up to we print it. A rat value is it's smart, so it will reduce the value as much as possible. So if you try to add 1/3 and 1/5, and then use the Perl method to see what is actually going on inside the language, we get the value stored internally, and that is 8/15. Integers. You get error checking for free if you use the type system in procedures like this. The result is a compile time error. The earlier you catch an error, the better. So, and the error message is quite impressive. It tells you exactly what is going on. If you skip the types on the arguments in the procedure, we get a runtime error instead. So this will happen after some part of the program has been running. Right. Let's say we have a procedure that demands a prime number as input. You can specify it in a where clause on the argument like this. And it will fail if you try to pass it something that isn't an integer. Sorry, isn't a prime number. If you have a lot of procedures doing exactly the same, it's tiresome to write where blah 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 is prime all the time. So then we can declare a custom type with a subset command like that, and specify the type prime in on the arguments. And we don't actually have to specify of int in this case. We can test it. Call it with 1, and it fails because 1 is not a prime number. If you call it with 3, then it's okay. And because we used a custom type, the error message actually tells us exactly what is wrong. Custom types, they work with the variables, but you can also do type constraints on them manually if you want that. But that gives not as good error messages. Randomness and ranges. Let's say we want a random integer between 10 and 99, both included. The normal way to do this is with the rand function. And this is how to do it. And it's very easy to get it wrong. So in Perl 6, you use pick, specify the range, and just pick one of the values. Impossible to get wrong. Yeah, this is a range. A list of consecutive integers from the first value to the last one, both included. We can skip either the first, the last, or both of them by adding a carré on the relevant side. A loop that we want to execute 10 times. Can do it like that. Or we can use the but not including carré as a shortcut and specify it like that. Do this 10 times. It's the same as the first one, except that the values are off by 1 or -1. They start with 0 and end with 9. And this is actually a good thing, because an index value of 0 is probably a good place to start, depending on what we are going to do with it. Sequences. Arrange, the first one with 2 dots in between, can only hold consecutive increasing integers, but the sequence can hold all types of numeric values in any order and strings. Both of them are usually lazy. The values are only calculated when actually needed. So a range from 1 to infinity is all right. It isn't computed until we actually need it. So to use them, you have to use binding instead of assignment to ensure that we don't try to evaluate them. And you cannot bind it to an array. You have to use binding to a scalar. So this will probably look familiar to a Perl 5 programmer, but it's not an array lookup. Yeah?
In the sequence,
Yeah?
the first one is alpha, the string alpha, and the second one, infinity, is omega. What will be the second?
That would work, as long as it would treat the string as a number and increase the last character until it reaches the upper limit, and do tens increment, so to speak, to on earlier one. If you understand. But you can try it, but be careful, because if you miss, then you're going on to infinity. But you have the suck, S-O-S-U-C-C method that you can use on the string to get the next value, and that will tell you exactly what you will get by a sequence like that on a string. Perl 6 recognizes some simple sequences by telling it the rule. This is the first one is every second value, and the next one is multiplied by 2, and the compiler understands that. If it doesn't understand what you're trying to do, like in the third one, it fails. If you want to have complicated rules, you can specify that. But I'm not going into that now. But note that the error message is only given when you actually try to access the values. This is the so-called deferred error, where it doesn't. The exception is only triggered when you use a value. You can try that one. It doesn't blow up when you do it, as long as you do not try to access the value afterwards. The say line here is the one that's causing the error. If you try this in REPL, it will fail there because REPL will try to output the value. So be aware of that. We can set up a sequence of prime numbers like this. All integers from 1 to infinity, and just grep out the one that are primes. And then print the 10 first ones, for instance, like that. Here we have the prime type again, and the number of primes, and we can declare a variable of the prime type, and get the 8th prime, which is 23. And if you then try to add 1 to it, it fails, of course, because 24 is not a prime. But we can fix the ++ operator. We can declare our own version of the postfix ++, where the argument is a prime number. The argument is declared as is read-write because we are changing the value. So we have to do that in order to get the changed value back. And what it does is just start with the next value after the one we get in and towards infinity, and check if it is a prime. If it is, then we write it back, otherwise we loop through. And we have to do this sort of strange lookup, because we cannot just add 1 to the value, because then it wouldn't be a prime anymore, so it would fail immediately. So you have to use a helper variable to do the test. That's $_ here. And using it, as you see there, we can start with the prime and just use ++ to get the next prime. Yeah. Don't do this. This will only confuse everybody. Defined or not. Boolean values. Perl 6 has the Boolean values true and false built in, but the line between Boolean values and numbers is blurred, so you can actually coerce them to a numeric value if you want to. True is 1 and false is 0. And this means that Perl 6 has the same support for using anything in a Boolean context as Perl 5, with the same problems. Especially that one. A value equals 0 is false. Exactly as you have it in Perl 5. So you have to check if the value is defined, if that is what you want to do. Regexes and alternatives. Perl 6 regexes respect Unicode properties. The first one there is actually a Roman numeral as a single Unicode character. And it is a digit. And also the German double S is a letter. Letter is a character class. There are many of them, and they have decent names. So you can write regexes that's easier to understand. The funny quotes around the result are there to tell us that this is a match object and not a string. Don't use match objects if you don't want to use them as a match object. Stringify them. A complex regex. This is a Perl 6 regex that parses a URL, or tries to at least. It has some errors in it, but well, adding comments, as done here, certainly helps a lot, but this isn't very readable. I note that in Perl 6 you can add new lines and comments as much as you want inside regexes. So yeah. A grammar instead, doing the same thing. The main point is that we give each part of the expression to match names, and the names are hopefully self-explanatory, so we can actually get away with this code without commenting it. Well, sort of, but it's much easier to understand. The rest of it. This was a Perl Weekly challenge, so the link at the bottom is to the article where I did this, if you want to or want the details of it. This is this week's Perl Weekly challenge. I posted the article today, so write a script to accept a string from command line and split it on change of character. For example, if the string is A, B, B, C, D, E, E, F, then it should split like A and B, B, and C and D and E, E, and F. How would you do this? This is in Perl 6. A loop, straightforward, sort of straightforward. It's actually a double loop, but well, it works. It's not that bad, but without comments, it's not very readable. We can use gather and take. This is also Perl 6. Also, it's shorter than the first one, but without comments, it's rather complex as well. maybe easier to understand, but don't know. We can use a grammar. We have the top rule that matches the rule clause called char, with a plus after, that is one or more time. And the actual char class is just one character, and then we save that one and repeat it afterwards, 0 or many times. So what we get is one or many of the same character. Call it like that. And that is a match object. We have called what we're interested in char, so we have to use that as an index. That is a list, because we are using the same name to match several things. And then I use map on that, because what this gave us is a match object, and they are not meant for printing. So I stringify it and return the list of substrings. I think this is much more easier to understand than especially that one. If you don't know about gather and take, then you certainly will not understand this one. And the article describing this is out on my blog, so just check it out if you want to. I do recommend grammars if you can use them. They are extremely powerful.
Solution looks much cleaner, but my concern is how about the performance? Which one of the three you showed would perform better?
Yeah, I haven't checked the performance of this, but I suspect that the loop version is the fastest.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
But that is just my gut feeling, so unscientific. But that is probably going to change as Perl 6 matures and gets better. Because when you do this, you have very little code, so it's much easier for the compiler to work on it. The longer the program as this or that one, it's much harder for the compiler to try to be smart. Right? Final words. This presentation is available online. There you have the link to Perl 6 introduction if you want that, and my blog page. Questions? Yeah?
I remember in one of your slides you mentioned that Perl 6 doesn't care about the line endings. So I have a question. For example, say I create a file in Windows. Of course, that file will have Windows line ending. If I take that file, go to a Linux environment and open that file using Perl 6, add few lines, save it, and the end result, would that have a Linux line ending and Windows line ending? What would happen?
The line endings you get when you write a file is depending on the system you're running on.
So that means the last time after you did the operation in Linux, that file will have two line endings. Some of them will have Windows line ending. The one you added in Linux environment would have Linux line ending. Is that what you're saying?
If you add to a file, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I take that file and go to a Mac machine and add few lines, you'll have three line endings, three different line endings in one file.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Inside, if you read the file in PerlCon, it doesn't make a difference.
No, what I'm saying, when I'm adding new.
Basically, all line endings wind up as the same synthetic character internally.
Okay.
So this is...
You in fact, if you add lines, you would actually get a file with different line endings. If you add lines, you would actually get lines with different line endings, but if you only use it in PerlCon, then it shouldn't be a problem, because it doesn't matter what line ending you get, even if it's mixed, because it will interpret any character return or a character return line feed or a line feed as a logical line ending internally.
One more thing I've noticed, not in this slide, but in general, my observation is every time I see a function defined in Perl 6, and if it consists of two words, you always put dash in between. I've never seen a function in Perl 6 with underscore, like in Perl 5. You normally see something underscore something as a method name, but I've never seen something like that in Perl 6. You always put dash. Is that by design or is just a personal choice?
It's personal choice for me, because the almost all the built-in commands have it.
Okay.
Almost all, not everyone.
So there's no such restriction. I could still have.
It's also to show off this is Perl 6 code, and you cannot do this in Perl 5. So
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Any more questions?
The sequences that were auto-detected, so it's really restricted to geometric and what was the other, so these 1, 2, 3, or these.
yeah, if you do it like that.
So what was the other word? It's geometric and arithmetic sequence. So it's really just detecting if it's one of these two types.
Yeah, but
Okay.
you can specify a rule.
Ah, okay.
I haven't shown that, but you can do that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So I noticed there was the ability to have more than one value to a variable, and also that we have true and false. If we have true and false as the value of a variable, does that trigger an exception whenever you try to evaluate that, like say with an if, because it's both true and false, something like that?
No?
Sweet.
Well, it should trigger an exception in your brain, perhaps, when you read the code afterwards, but yeah.